How many angry people are simply just anxious? Welcome to my channel. First off, if you're new here, I talk about mental health and well-being and lots of different stuff. I challenge some of the conversations around the ways that we look at mental health and well-being to try and get us to think about it in a different way. And so if that feels like something that might be of interest to you, then please make sure you subscribed and turned on the notifications so you know each and every time I post a video. So have you ever noticed that right after someone's made you jump, the first thing you want to do is swear or chuck something at them, right? Our reaction to that fear and to the anxiety that it creates is often first anger, right? And what I recognize more and more in my life today is that the problems that I've often had with anger, so much of it can be associated with a reaction to anxiety. Now, of course, there's lots of complex different reasons why I've struggled and can still to some degree struggle with anger, right? But I do think one of the main reasons is anxiety. And what I mean by that is a lot of my anxiety is caused by shame, right? And my reaction to and fear of feeling shamed, right? And so the anxiety that goes around in my body is that fear of people finding out, that fear of people seeing who I truly am at my core, or at least what I believe I am at my core. And that's where the anxiety in me often comes from. And my reaction to that throughout my life, I now recognize, is quite often been one of anger. Okay, so when I'm trying to desperately hide who I believe I truly am, I need defense mechanisms for me to cope with that. And I think this is true a lot for a lot of particularly men, but human beings in general. And for me, by the time I was 15, 16 and into young adulthood, right, my resting face was one of anger, and I couldn't understand why everyone seemed to want to fight me all the time when I was walking around like that. It's one of pumping my chest out and walking around like that. And when I do that, right, that is hiding myself behind it and the true self of it and the true part of me that actually is quite scared and in fear. And often as a young boy into my early teenage years, particularly at senior school, I recognized that when I was feeling anxious and I was really worried that people were going to see that, then if I took things from kind of a level of 1 to 10 straight away, then I was always taken away from that situation. So let me give you an example. I'm always made to sit at the front. I don't realize as a child that having loads of people behind me makes me deeply anxious. I'm terrified that they can see in my head, because when I'm anxious it feels like everybody can see how scared I am, and I desperately don't want them to see. And as I sit and try and gain control of the situation as a child and I start to act out and it doesn't work, I know that if I throw a chair at the teacher, then it will work in an instant and I'll be taken out of there. It serves a purpose and it worked. When I didn't have the vocabulary or even the nous in me to articulate what I was feeling, I did something else to cope. And when we transfer that even into my life today as somebody who struggles with anxiety in the way that I do, you can see different ways and how that plays out. We think of anxiety meaning when somebody struggles with anxiety that they walk around and they're meek and they're mild and they're very anxious. Actually, the reality, I believe, is that a lot of people that suffer from anxiety walk around in a completely different way, a much more way of coping with and hiding that fear of anxiety. When I go to a supermarket, they're loud, echoey places, they make me feel anxious, right? But I don't walk around and I don't even necessarily connect that originally in my head. What I do is I walk around with my trolley and I start going, look at this idiot over there with his trolley, pushing it. He needs to learn how to drive his trolley, right? Now it seems like an abnormal reaction to something that shouldn't anger me in the way that it does. But what it actually is a defense and coping mechanism to how anxious and frightened I feel, right? Anxiety is, in its essence, fear, right? So when I start to recognize that actually lots of my angry outbursts, lots of my acting with kind of force and anger is a reaction to the feeling of anxiety, then I have the opportunity to be able to manage that. And when we're talking about young people in a setting, we do all this anger management. We try to get them to control their anger. And we do the same with adults, right? Without ever actually going beyond that anger and looking at what that anger might be a reaction to. We have to understand that anger is a reaction to something. And when we do realize that, then you start to get curious and look for what's going on behind that and what is the anger a reaction to. And for me, it's quite often anxiety. And I think lots of people will relate to that. When we're angry, Look beyond it. Question, what was the original feeling? What was the feeling in your body when you first felt anger, and where did it come from? Because quite often I think you will find that it is anxiety. As always, if you've liked this video, if you think it might be helpful, then please make sure that you share and like it to help the channel grow. And we're growing pretty quick at the moment, so I'm enjoying every second.